We try to support anything that we say and also our opinions based on data. And what we do is to mapping all the tech ecosystem in the world, at least the most relevant ones. And so we measure what are called startups and scale-ups, particularly scale-ups that are the most structured startup. We define scale-up startups that raise at least $1 million. And so we try to map them, at least to see where the ecosystem get a density of maturity. And then we measure the presence of corporates in the different ecosystems as a way of understanding also the interest of what are called the corporate hunters to the innovation that is produced in specific ecosystems. And so that is what we are presenting today, is the new version of our report, Corporate Innovation Outposts in Israel. So we have mapped and to here what are the multinational corporates that have a presence over here. And so that's the report. And again, just to give you the sense why Israel, and particularly how Israel is evolving, again, I don't want to spend too much time over here because has been also covered before. But again, the first line is the number of scale-ups, startups that raise $1 million. Second line, what we call scalers, startups raise $100 million. The third line are what are called super scalers, that meaning startups raise $1 billion, unicorn value. This is money in the pockets. And the fourth line is the capital that's being collectively raised by all of them. Fifth line, we are comparing scale-ups with the population, 100,000 people, number of scale-ups per 100,000 people population. And the last line is comparing capital investment with GDP. I know that it's a very, very dirty proxy, but give a sense of how much is the percentage of investments compared to the size of the economy. And again, if you look and you want to ask why Israel, I think you got your answer. So you're talking about a company that is able to produce a number of scale-ups that you need to put together Germany and France to get the same numbers. And again, it's getting close to the UK. So that's where we are here. And again, if you look at compared to the GDP and compared to the population, again, the obviously is pretty, let's say, no-brainer why companies are looking at this kind of place. The other place they are looking, by the way, is Silicon Valley. You also have your answers why. And that are increasingly looking to some other geographies emerging. One of them is South Korea. And by the way, they are the places where we have an innovation center. So again, we are driven by data, not by because we like a specific place rather than other. And again, this is just to plotting the same numbers based on the population and the GDP, and you can see what are the ecosystem with the largest density. Just to give you another fact, there is the East Coast, and particularly New York, Boston, and Cambridge are becoming another area of strong concentration of scale-ups. It's not yet at the level of Silicon Valley. It's not exactly like Silicon Valley, but it's getting closer. And again, that's why we, in this part of the world, we have corporates that are opening an innovation presence. Not just opening a branch, but opening a branch that is focused on innovation. We have 4 categories of them. I want to go super fast, and then I will leave the floor to Max to give you some of these numbers. Substantially, we have this presence may range from different form. They might have what is called, again, the typical traditional form of called the R&D center. Again, they're placing an R&D labs, R&D center, typically that are associated with a large number of people. Then there are definitely more linear forms that are being emerging in the past few years. We call them antennas. Typically, it's a bunch of people, sometimes one person, 2 people, 3 people, up to 5 people, just working as scouting, supporting what is called the venture client. Tonight, during the Corporate Startups Roundtable, we have the opportunity to discuss with a few of them. And then the Corporate Innovation Labs are the evolution of what are defined accelerators, meaning a bit larger presence, but not as large an R&D center, mostly for developing certain technologies together with startups. Not an R&D approach, but mostly an accelerator lab approach. And then there are the support to the investments, typically associated of CVCs, funds. So this is the typical form. Max, if you want to probably to drive through the numbers, just to find out and provide a picture of where we are.
So, thank you, Alberto. Thank you, everyone. So, in Israel, we have a really great density of corporates looking for innovation in the startup nation. We have 182 corporates with an innovation presence in Israel and 224 with an innovation presence in Israel. Apologize for the mistake, but what's nice to look is that we did an analysis 3 years ago in 2020, and what we learned is that now this presence has increased by 17% in terms of number of corporates and 13% in terms of innovation outposts. One important factor is that 30 corporates are present with multiple facilities, so more than one R&D center or innovation lab or a corporate venture capital unit dedicated to different specific activities or technologies targeted for scouting. What's also really interesting is that not only the majority of corporates come from the US due probably to the historical ties between the US and Israel, but the presence is global. We have corporates from all over the globe tackling innovation in Israel. Japan follows in terms of sheer numbers with 18 corporates present in Israel. Germany follows with 16, but we have companies from the APAC country, from Australia, from basically the whole of Europe, and even Latin America from Brazil. But what matters mostly is also that actually, if you're a corporate nowadays, if you don't disrupt yourself, someone else will. In a world where technology moves at a faster pace and innovation are also cross-industry, the risk of being disrupted is higher than ever. And especially leveraging also the data that has been presented by Anar from the Israel Innovation Authority, we know that in Israel, the emerging technologies and the R&D is extremely advanced in fields such as quantum computing, cybersecurity, and especially climate tech and agri-food tech. And that attracted corporates from almost all industries. Traditionally, IT software and electronics and biotech have the largest footprint in Israel, but since our latest analysis, we now know that companies from the energy and power business, the food and beverage industry, but also from aeronautics and defense, are now tapping into the startup nation. And again, traditionally, more than half of the corporate innovation outposts in Israel are R&D center, 116 of them. But the presence of lean establishment is getting bigger and bigger. Now we report 22 corporate antennas. As mentioned, those lean teams, small teams, doing mostly tech scouting and approaching the ecosystem fast and effectively. Relatively more structured innovation labs, that could be accelerators, incubators, are now 45. And CVC offices, 41. And this presence also reflected in the headcount data. 3 years ago, the vast majority of outposts in Israel were like companies and establishment between 50 employees and beyond. Now we see a surge in smaller and lean teams, like 38% are small teams with 1 and 10 people, professionals involved. But altogether, they form a contingent of 40,000 innovation professionals, both locally sourced and from the globe. It's one of the most dense quantity of innovation professionals in a global innovation hub. By comparison, Silicon Valley hosts around 50,000 innovation professionals in the same fashion, which is huge. And as you can see, the trend of new lean outposts is relatively new. Traditionally, Israel has been the land of R&D. It still is, but it's also becoming the land of scouting for new technologies in a lean and flexible way. This is the time to approach Israel also from a flexible standpoint. As you can see, since 2015, antennas have quadrupled. Innovation labs are now 3 times more than the previous period. And again, also we have 22 new corporate venture capital units in respect to the previous period when we had 8. And where are all these units? Mostly here in Tel Aviv. But one interesting thing is that there are other ecosystems of relevance, all scattered throughout the country. Not only the closest cities of Herzliya and Petah Tikva, but all throughout the country, where actually 3 out of 4 R&D centers are hosted, which means that the whole country is an innovation ecosystem with unique characteristics all over spread out the country. In Tel Aviv, notably, being the financial center, of course, that's the majority of lean establishments, but also half of the corporate venture capital unit that we mapped are in Tel Aviv. I leave again to Alberto.
Just to close it down, and then I leave you to the report for getting all the data. But again, just to comparing apples with oranges, or meaning Silicon Valley with Israel, that you usual suspect when you're talking about innovation. Substantially, you see that obviously Silicon Valley is a way larger ecosystem, and you see that they're probably almost the double of the present multinational corporates, again 330 versus 182. In terms of headcount, the difference is not that big because, as mentioned, the presence of R&D center increased the headcount of Israel, innovation headcount of Israel compared to Silicon Valley. Obviously, in terms of scale-ups, capital raises is still a different league. But again, it's getting closer, and it's particularly getting closer the fact that it's changing a bit the way corporates are addressing Israel. While it was, as Max mentioned, mostly an R&D approach, now is moving versus what is called today the open innovation approach. It's a company coming over here for scouting for collaborating with local startups, the so-called venture client, for investing into them, and for sometimes to trigger some acquisition. So that's how it works. Again, if you're curious to know who's who, this is the map of the corporate that we put together. Just for you to know, we are considering only corporate that have a full headcount in Israel dedicated to innovation. Not people that are traveling in and out. Obviously, the number will become definitely larger and larger. And again, if you're curious to know who exactly they are, you can download our directory, just taking a picture of the barcode. And again, there is also an online directory. You can search on our website and find exactly what are the corporate per industry, per vertical, per location, know exactly who is the person in charge of them. And by the way, if you find some information might not be 100% accurate, please let us know that we're gonna fix it. Thank you.